is meat good for you, or is it quietly destroying your gut health, your cholesterol, and your long-term future health? Or have you been told to eat less red meat, focus on cholesterol-lowering foods, and load up on plants to protect yourself from autoimmune diseases and chronic illness, but you're still dealing with bloating, constipation, fatigue, or worsening autoimmune symptoms? Or maybe you've tried vegan, vegetarian, or clean eating diets for your health, but instead of getting better, your symptoms have stagnated or worsened. If you said yes to any of these questions, this episode is for you. Today, we're tackling one of the most controversial questions in nutrition. Is meat good for you? Over the last 8 years working with hundreds of clients, I've seen something that goes directly against the majority of mainstream advice, which is the very food people are told to avoid for cholesterol, heart, or autoimmune disease reasons is actually the food that is helping them heal. Yes, even my vegan and vegetarian clients are healing when they eat meat. In this episode, we're breaking down the truth about meat, cholesterol, and gut health, why meat may be one of the most powerful tools for a natural autoimmune remission, and who should consider diets like carnivore, keto, or even the Lion diet, which is popularized by Michaela Fuller, or formerly Michaela Peterson. But we're also going to talk about when meat doesn't make sense, what circumstances can make meat feel like it is the problem, and what to do if your body isn't tolerating meat. If you've been hesitant to eat meat, or you're wondering if you should include meat on a journey to eating healthier, this episode is for you. Hey friend, welcome to the Better Belly Podcast. If you're currently trying endless supplements, doctor visits, and diet changes to heal your mystery symptoms, you are in the right place. We're here to solve the real root causes behind your gut, hormones, skin, sleep, and brain concerns. Literally anything and everything in your body. My name is Allison Jordan. I'm a functional medicine practitioner that has supported over 150 clients just like you to heal problems that no one has been able to fix. You don't need a perfect diet or a random supplement you found on Instagram to heal. You need a proven system that heals your whole body from the inside out. That's what I'm here to share with you, episode by episode. It's time to make health easy again. And just as a reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own health practitioner before you make any changes to your health. A friend of mine recently told me she wanted to start making healthier meals at home for her family, but she didn't know where to start. Her first question for me was, is eating meat healthy? And it brought up this deep, long-held frustration that I know many other health practitioners have been having, which is a very, very intense vendetta that has been being built up against meat. And I don't know why or where it's come about. It seems that it's just slowly accrued over time, a discomfort with meat over maybe like the last 100 years. It's increased. Our discomfort in meat, whether it's from the perspective of animal cruelty or research that seems to point at meat being the harbinger of heart disease and obesity and cholesterol issues, or even more recent conversations about water dependency and if it's even good for the planet. There's always been some conflict on meat. And honestly, interestingly enough, not a lot on vegetables, not a lot on fruit. There's not been a lot of conversation, even though there are plenty of reasons and plenty of people who should not be or currently would feel better if they did not eat plant products. More on that in a second. But there's been a lot of beef with meat. And unfortunately, in today's episode, my goal is not to debunk every area that meat has been villainized, things like cholesterol, water dependency, and animal cruelty. But I do want to give word or verbalize that those are hesitancies that people have, because when I come and I want to talk about the superpowers of meat. They're not talked about a lot. And they're very, very important to know when you're going to make a decision on whether or how much you're going to include meat in your diet, or even if you're processing issues like what foods might make me feel best or help me put symptoms or health issues into remission, or be best for your long-term health. So I am going to talk about the most what I've been seeing and research and evidence we have that meat is good for you. And I'm not going to be doing full reviews on like debunking all of these other things. I will say that if you want to learn more about cholesterol specifically, I have a full podcast episode that I dedicated to cholesterol on how to naturally lower your cholesterol without having to give up fat or meat. So I do dive more into there, more debunking of that, the idea that meat inherently increases cholesterol. And it was really interesting, even just prepping for this podcast episode, I did a quick research or quick search on what comes up when looking at meat and cholesterol. And could I even easily find, like, you know, it's been a couple years since I last did that episode. Could I find any more easily findable evidence that people are more talking about how it's really not good research that's been done out there that shows that meat is what causes cholesterol to rise? And it's still primarily, when I pulled up it on Google and research it, even like, what is it called? PubMed. Even when I pulled those up, I still saw the majority of articles pointing to meat is bad, meat does raise cholesterol, etc. And it's just not good. It's not good science. So go listen to that podcast episode if you want to learn more about it. Also really interesting, I did a quick review on water dependency and meat to see what people were saying now, again, compared to when I've talked about meat in the past. There was one woman that I had been following on Instagram. She'd had a website and she'd been talking about how meat was not nearly as water dependent as it was basically being beefed up to be, to use a term. And her website's down. I don't know. I'm guessing she's doing something else now. So I was kind of sad that information was gone. But I did find some information on water dependency that I wanted to just briefly mention, which was that I try to do the best searching I could, because honestly, it's amazing how Google is flooded. Search engines are flooded with all the articles on how bad water dependency, or how much more water it takes to grow meat than it takes to grow like vegetables. And it's really not good volume science. Some of it has to do with the fact that we waste a lot of the water that we use to grow plants. And so even the plants are actually guzzle way more water than they need to. And another issue is that when you compare meat that's grown in a like factory or a building versus with products, like if they're eating corn and maize, like all this stuff that they're basically eating all these grains and they're not grass feeding. There's a big difference between the amount of water it takes to grow beef from a grass-fed farm, which is primarily, it's 90% rainwater. So the amount of water it takes to grow that grass-fed beef is way less. I did find information on that. And then the amount of water it takes compared to like animal that's grown, I guess you could say that's raised in a barn and only stands in a small area, and it's not grass-fed. It's not the natural way that we've taken care of animals for thousands and thousands of years. So I try to find stuff on that to even just see if I can point you guys in the right direction. And it's really hard to find stuff like that. And unfortunately, some of that information's even been taken down. But you're like, Allison, why, if everybody else is saying the opposite, why are you going the opposite direction? There's a couple of reasons. Number one, everything I'm talking about today has nothing to do with water dependency or cholesterol or animal cruelty. It has to do with what we're actually seeing with individuals who are chronically ill, dealing with multiple autoimmune conditions, chronic symptoms that won't go away, how beef is helping them, and not just beef, meat is helping them and helps them feel massively better. And I also want to get into some specific details on superpowers of meat that don't get talked about. They just don't get talked about, in my opinion, enough. And so I want to give that to you guys as a way to know that I think meat is a superfood as much as, and by the way, the term superfood is just, it's a marketing term, right? Like it's just to categorize something as buyable or more desirable or something you can mark up in price and value because people now perceive it at a higher value. But yeah, if you're talking about foods that have a lot of nutrients, a lot of value to them per ounce or per pound, I think meat should be up there. So that's it for my disclaimer of the beef with meat. We're not going to address all of it. I think that if anything, honestly, when I was thinking about these three things that might make someone reluctant to eat meat or to have somebody eat meat or to themselves buy it and eat meat. It's that we're not following animal farming practices that we have for thousands of years. The very basic way to take care of an animal is as kind as can be. It's as natural as can be. It's as water use normal as can be. They're drinking the same water that would fall on the grass that would otherwise be managed by nearby streams and rivers, right? So it's human management and human deviation of nature that maybe is what's messing with things more than like the animals or the eating of animals themselves. So that's my whole side note. All right, some superpowers of meat you should know about that I think should be reasons you're eating meat at ideally every meal. It's something that I aim for my children. And I know this came out of a question from a friend of mine on what to feed her family, especially her children. I'm going to be having a series coming up. It might be like late this year or early next year, but a series on kid health, on feeding family, on recipes, on buying food, on ways that I make making healthy meals super easy and super accessible. Since that doesn't exist yet, you can always go to betterbellytherapies.com/recipes and grab my family cookbook that I put together for friends and families to use to cook for us when I got pregnant and we were having a meal train. But you can go grab that. It's just our family cookbook. You can go use it. But coming back, superpowers of meat. There's a bunch of stuff that meat does that is going to be really helpful for adults, also really helpful for kids. And then once we get past this, I'm going to dive into one amazing story of a woman who reversed multiple autoimmune conditions and psychiatric conditions, and especially like a pediatric rheumatoid arthritis case. She reversed all of this through eating meat and giving examples of clients of mine who were vegan or vegetarian or just didn't eat a lot of meat and then felt better on more heavy meat diets. And then just examples biologically of cases and issues that people might have that makes them predisposed to feeling better on a higher meat diet or all meat diet, which I'm not saying everyone needs to be on an all meat diet, but meat is helpful. So some things to think about with meat. Number one, it is a source of protein that has all the amino acids that you need. And I know that people who are vegan and vegetarian try to be intentional to eat from a variety of plant products so that they can get all the protein they need. But it is very, very hard to eat the volume of plant products you need to hit a helpful amount of protein for an adult or a growing child. So for an adult, especially like we think a lot about female nutrition when you're pregnant, you want to hit close to 100 grams of protein. Usually I didn't hit 100 grams of protein because I couldn't fit that much protein into my body in the form of meat. You have to even eat an even higher volume if you're trying to take in your protein as in the form of lentils or chickpeas or any type of plant-based protein. But it is a full spectrum amino acid to make all of everything you need in your body to make amino acids. So muscle fibers to build muscle, that's for children, that's for adults. Neurotransmitters, you need protein to bring in amino acids to then build neurotransmitters. So that's focus, that's memory, that's mood. Neurotransmitters run everything inside your brain and many things inside your body and your gut. Your gut produces 80% of the serotonin in your body because serotonin has a role in motility in the gut. We need protein for neurotransmitters. It needs to be full spectrum, and it's just a really accessible place to get it. Meat also has is a great source of iron, and kids' brains need iron. 90% of brain development happens by age 5, and the brain development, especially that's happening between 0 to 5, is particularly in the cerebellum, which is a very iron-hungry part of the brain. I actually got this information from Dr. Michael Malobsky, who's a board-certified pediatrician. Got it from a reel. I'm going to put the reel in the show notes for today. But really interesting information on we want our kids to have iron. And yes, there's iron in spinach. There's iron in other foods, but there's also issues in those foods as well. There's a lot of oxalates in spinach, for example, that you don't like. If you're having a kid with health issues, you don't want to get them a ton of spinach. They're going to feel worse. They're going to have more issues, more symptoms. And so we want to consider that meat is high in certain nutrients, and then it's also low in some other really important things, which we're going to get to in a second. So high in iron. If for any reason you just want to supplement your iron, I get asked this question a lot. I really love the liquid form of iron called Floridix. It's Floravital. Floridix has wheat in it, so if you have any suspicion that your child is wheat sensitive, I just like to go with Floravital. It's the same value, same absorbability, same everything. It has B vitamins in it. It has vitamin C. It's liquid. It's made of like a mixture of juices, and my daughter loves it. I could see there being a possibility some kids might not like it, but my daughter loves drinking it. She would drink half of the thing if I let her, but I don't want her to overdose in iron. But I'm going to put a link in the show notes to Floravital. It has instructions on the back of the bottle of recommendations for how much to give your children. Super, super powerful. But if you're trying to supplement for iron outside of meat, that's one recommendation in case you're curious. Meat's also really high in B12. Super powerful. Don't know if you knew that. Meat's high in zinc. Zinc is important for skin health. It's important for digestive health. It helps create stomach acid. It helps with our immune system. We really need zinc. Most of the adults I'm working with who are chronically ill are zinc deficient. It's very, very common. And so we're not getting enough zinc. We're not absorbing enough zinc. We'll get to that in a second as well, of when meat is causing issues. Because I believe it. Like when I have clients say, oh, I don't feel good when I eat meat, I believe them, right? Like they're not lying. They're not having a true experience. I do think some people feel worse on meat, and some of that is also going to feed into not being able to absorb these key nutrients that are amazing and inside meat. But meats, honestly, it starts to escalate into superfoods, because like you could say lots of vegetables have high B12 or zinc or, iron. You get kind of amazingly high amounts of epicness when you start to consider this thing about meat, which is it's low in anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients. Have you heard of this term before? It's kind of wild. Anti-nutrients refers to anything that binds nutrients that you would otherwise be able to absorb and then not be able to absorb it. So a great example of an anti-nutrient is oxalates. Oxalates are found in varying levels in plant food, and it is usually not an issue for people, but if you're having an issue processing oxalates in your body, it will bind to things like calcium and then disable you from being able to absorb calcium properly, and it's therefore considered an anti-nutrient. Again, usually not an issue for the majority, like a healthy person, right? Healthy part of the population, but if you are having chronic illness issues, I see that it's just massively increases the likelihood that you are, for example, struggling with an oxalate sensitivity. And I have a whole podcast episode on oxalates. If you've never heard of them before, if you're having a child or you yourself or know an adult who's having health issues, you go listen to this oxalate episode 148, and it's linked in the show notes. Another thing that, these aren't necessarily always considered anti-nutrients, but they definitely are things that are in plants, but they're in plants and they can cause issue for clients. Number one is lectins. Lectins are part of the plant structure, and some foods are high in lectins, some foods aren't. And we actually have a test we do with our clients to see if they have a lectin sensitivity, which is really interesting. You can actually have an immune response, a food sensitivity response to just the lectin portion of a food. So I actually have a lectin sensitivity to bell peppers, to the actual structure of bell peppers. And if I eat a bell pepper, my stomach is not happy. And I had never noticed that or identified it before. I got rid of them from my diet and then I felt better. But interestingly, you can actually break down lectins in high pressure cookers. So if you are sensitive to lectins in tomatoes, which you could find out through testing, then you just cook your tomatoes in a high pressure cooker or put your tomato sauce in a high pressure cooker and it breaks it down. Another big issue, which I'm covering next week, is salicylate sensitivity. They're plants, fruits, veggies, grains. They have salicylates in them. Some have high amounts, some have low amounts. There's ways to reduce the salicylates, like peeling your fruits and veggies. But if you are having issues with salicylate overload and you have salicylate sensitivity, then meat is super safe. Meat doesn't have oxalates, lectins, salicylates. It is it is not a nightshade. It's all these things that plants are. And that unfortunately, even though I think our bodies are designed to be able to eat plants, just the way our bodies are designed to be able to eat meat, and there's not an issue, people are having issues, right? That's why we have medicine and health and research and all this to try and figure things out. Meat's also low in FODMAPs. A couple weeks ago, is it 2 or 3? I think as of this, when this episode comes out, 2 or 3 weeks prior to this episode's release, I released an episode on the low FODMAP diet and why it's not working for honestly millions of people. And if you don't know about FODMAPs, you can go learn about them there. But FODMAPs are fermentable sugars, and they're only found in plants. So you can eat all the meat you want, and you're not going to get any FODMAPs in your diet. Really, really great. The last reason I love meat, love meat, and there's a lot of foods that could fall into this category too, granted. There's some foods that don't, but it's the fact that it's tough. It's chewy. If you're like not eating deli meat, that's like basically pre-chewed, right? If you're eating steak and chicken that's been cubed or just like right off, some meat maybe is more tender, but in general, there's going to be chewing. And this is amazing for children in particular. One of the things that I gauge my child, like not every meal, but many meals, I'm trying to hit 3 things. I'm trying to hit, is there a fat? Is there a protein? Is there a carb? And then is there something chewy? Is there a hard carrot? Is there meat that's really chewy in there? Is there something that's tough that they have to work at? It helps to spread their teeth apart, and actually it's part of the expansion of their mouths to chew and the expansion of the jaw. The jawbone needs to have input into it through pressure just as they grow older to say, open this up. And the top of the mouth needs pressure. Some of that pressure comes from the tongue and where the tongue is resting, because if the tongue has a tether to it that you don't know that they have a tongue tie, or the tongue itself has been trained to be in the wrong position due to overuse of thumb sucking or pacifiers or like a lot of congestion as a kid where their tongue, as they slept, was having to be open, their mouth was having to be open so that they could breathe. Any of these issues could then lead to the tongue not being at the roof of the mouth, and then they'll have crowded teeth, they'll need to have teeth pulled, they'll have snoring issues, sleep issues, bedwetting, behavioral issues, because all this impacts sleep. But the other aspect, other than the tongue being at the roof of the mouth, is what you are actually putting in your mouth to chew. We have a very soft food diet, soft white bread, pureed, yogurts and applesauce. And we're honestly, like, as a culture, terrified to give our children hard food. We just think they're going to choke on it and die. And that is, I'm not saying like there's a line, right, between like truly unsafe and safe foods and the different ages and different times to give them different things. But meat in general, when you're thinking of a child with molars and able to chew, meat is great at helping the bones of their cranium to expand left and right. I love that. That's just like, it's not about nutrients. It's not about anti-nutrients. It's just about cranial development, and cranial development is whole health development. It's about, when you have good cranial development, the tonsils will be nice and small. They'll be able to breathe through their nose. They're going to be able to sleep much better, sleep great. It's going to impact their height, their growth, their cognition, their mood. And if you want to learn more about that, if your child is having bedwetting issues, breathing issues, snoring issues, behavioral issues, go check out my episode 48, Got Snoring, Sleep Apnea, TMJ, or Teeth Grinding. You may need an orofacial malfunctional therapist. And it does cover like even more than what the title said. It covers all the things that we just mentioned here for symptoms. So that is some of the superpowers of meat just on its own. But meat gets even more meteoric, like just amazing. Not mediocre, meteoric, like a meteor. So I wanted to start this section off on basically calling it Meat Super Stories. And I want to start it with the story of Michaela Fuller, formerly Michaela Peterson. So Michaela Fuller grew up, and first off, she's the daughter of Jordan B. Peterson. He's kind of a rising name and figure in the public. Love him or hate him, he's known, so I'm using him. And his daughter, before they were famous, grew up with like tons and tons of symptoms. So, and I pulled up her, and I'm putting it in the episode show notes, but her story of her health issues, and I had read it just a little bit before getting on here to refresh myself with some of the symptoms. She said she was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis when she was 7, but her symptoms began at 2 years old. It took 5 years to diagnose. She was put on immune suppressants, and then she started injecting herself with twice weekly when she was 8. She was diagnosed with severe depression, later bipolar type 2, medicated with SSRIs when she was 12, but had symptoms of medical illness since she was 8. The psychiatric symptoms worsened when she moved houses and grew up in a basement with black mold, which she fairly recently discovered that there was black mold. In terms of she's been talking about her health issues publicly for many years, and that was her passion. She grew up before her dad was famous. This was her plan, was to talk about the health crisis that millions of people are going through and are getting unaddressed. And she reversed all of her health issues with going on what she terms a lion diet. So a lion diet is a carnivore diet. So if you think meat, carnivore diet usually includes all animal products. So meat, eggs, cheese. A lion diet has no cheese, no eggs, no like animal byproducts. It's just animal, and the animals are limited to ruminant meat, meaning hooved mammals, because they have specialized 4-compartment stomachs that allow them to ferment and digest plant-based cellulose. So it's really, really, really low inflammation meat, opposed to chicken, salmon, these other types of, they're like meat. Like salmon is a meat. It's fish, y'all. But it's not, salmons don't have 4 stomachs. That's the issue. It's just science, y'all. And so you're going to be eating things like beef, lamb, goat, deer, bison, hooved animals. And so she heard of it, but she's trying to make it a lot more, not in a bad way, but she's trying to bring attention to it. And interestingly enough, I'm putting her website. It's called liondiet.com. Super basic. She actually has a whole web page for transformations, the age, the symptoms the person was dealing with, before and after pictures. I mean, just really amazing stories. She has the whole like how to do the lion diet A to Z, like just recommended purchases, like a 8-inch chef's knife, salt, instant pot, dehydrator, gets very, very specific with what she recommends. How to deal with side effects like loose stools, mental fog, muscle cramps, how to start the process, like don't just cold turkey yourself into it. So if you even wanted to try the lion diet, it's like very thorough. I mean, she clearly I think she's done a great job on this website, and she points to a ton of other resources that you can learn more stuff about. If you can't tell, I'm a bit of a fan. I don't do the lion diet. I don't need the lion diet. She's actually been working on finding ways to be able to heal her body so she can reintroduce foods. I think it's not to say everyone needs the lion diet, or you need it, everyone should be doing the lion diet, or that you need to do it for forever. But it is an incredibly powerful tool, and it's the only thing that's ever put her symptoms into remission. No amount of supplements, no amount of medications from the doctor helped her. She only got worse. And you can actually, her story goes on even beyond that pediatric timeline. So she is the main story that I think of because she's been really good at publicizing and detailing her experiences. And she definitely has that, qualifies as extreme bad to extreme good. Like she has 3 children. Guys, she went through 3 pregnancies only eating meat. Right? And I think that's fascinating. Her children are perfectly healthy and normal, right? I think we've been told this storyline that meat, if you only eat meat or the more meat you eat, you're going to miss all these nutrients from all these other plants. But it's like, is it possible the plants are harming you more than they're helping you? For some people, yes. And I wouldn't say it's all my clients. It is no part of the Better Belly Blueprint where it says everybody in here can't eat meat or can't eat plants, only eat meat. But it's as people are going through the process and they're realizing their food sensitivities, or, oh, wow, they're sensitive to salicylates. I sometimes say it might be simpler for you to just try a carnivore diet or a lion diet. And then another alternative, it's another option, or just so you understand that keto diet is high amounts of fat and protein from meat sources, but it's also plant-based protein. So like avocados, lettuce, these all have these anti-nutrients inside them, or just nutrients that you might be having a hard time breaking down, like salicylates and lectins. So Just super simple is like lion diet or carnivore diet. And really lion diet, they have some amazing research that they're doing. It's like they have it on, they have a lot of, through the Fuller Foundation, Research Foundation, I think this is what's funding it. They're doing a clinical trial they're like literally currently running a clinical trial. It's going to be a 6-month trial with 160 adults. And they're researching the lion diet's effectiveness for reversing, or it says for quality of life and symptom burden of individuals with symptomatic inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, or rheumatoid arthritis. So, I mean, just like they're doing like legit research, which is just phenomenal. Ooh, and I'm actually I hadn't looked at it, but I'm looking at it right now. The study design is going to be adults age 18 to 64, and they're going to have 3 groups: a ketogenic diet, a carnivore diet, the lion diet specifically, so the ruminant meat only, and then the control group, where they the group will stay with their current diet and be monitored for 3 months. Cool. Yeah, so it'll be a 3-month timeline. And then participants will be followed over a 6-month period fully. 3 months of intervention in the diet, and then 6-month follow. Anyways, I hadn't looked at that, but I'm going to put the link to the Lion Diet website, specifically to Michaela's story, and then you can find all the other resources they have. But then for me, I've had clients who they really needed to be eating meat. So I had a client, she was a vegetarian. When she came into our program, she was having just like persistent bloating and abdominal discomfort, fatigue, like energy dropping off every afternoon. She has 2 children. She's a business owner, and she really thought, hey, it's probably just my age or something, but she just didn't like how it made her look. Didn't make her feel comfortable in her body to have this belly that looked bloated, even though she ran every day. Like, she's an extreme athlete in terms of like, she loves working out. She's got a lot of muscle strength, but her belly just didn't look good. And she tried pelvic floor therapy and all this stuff. And so when she started working with us, when she got testing, we found a lot of issues, hidden pathogens she had going on, mold exposure. But one thing she was also dealing with was hair falling out. And so we recommended that she just experiment with increasing the protein in her diet. And she was finding she couldn't up her protein up to the milligrams we were recommending. I think we were trying to get her to 60 milligrams. We actually said, hey, can you go and look at how much protein you're getting? And she was only getting and she was active as a vegetarian. She was actively trying to get protein into every meal and eating large quantities, but she was only still getting about 30 grams. Or like, let's try to double it and get to 60. And she couldn't get it. She literally volume wise, her stomach couldn't, she just got full. So she started eating meat and her hair stopped falling out. So, I mean, and maybe it's related to iron that's in meat. Maybe it's related, but I mean, protein, you need protein in your body to be able to process, especially if you're working out, which is interesting because she said years ago, she was I think a vegan specifically when she ran her first Ironman, and she felt amazing. And I really think that she's not lying, but that something had changed. Maybe it was the fact that she's in a different home and it was the mold exposure. Mold is a huge driver. And you see in Fuller's story that mold was a part of her story in moving into a house when her symptoms got a lot worse, that the house had black mold as a child. But we have so many clients that, this specific client, her story, she had mold exposure and they've just remediated, and maybe she'll be able to go back to eating a plant-based diet, but mold exposure makes you're so much more likely to have issues with oxalates or issues with lectins or issues with salicylates, issues with plant-based products. And meat doesn't have all those issues. It doesn't have all those additional things. It is super, super, super simple. So I wanted to share examples then also of when clients have said, I don't feel good when I eat meat. Don't make me eat meat. I feel worse. So when I've had clients who feel worse on meat, usually what we find at some point in our testing and the healing process is they have one or multiple drivers that make it hard for them to break down meat. So one really common one is low stomach acid, super common. If you have any health issues at all, please look into getting into low stomach acid as a possible driver. One of many, because low stomach acid doesn't happen on its own. So low stomach acid, you have issues that lead you into it, but once you're in that pit of low stomach acid, you don't come out on your own. You don't just like stop having it. You have to pull yourself out. And I'll put a link to the show notes to our low stomach acid episode. In that episode, I share information on like how to test yourself for low stomach acid. And actually, I can just share it right now. If you go to betterbellytherapies.com/constipation, I have a 3-page it's 3 natural remedies to constipation. And one of the remedies in it is to test yourself for low stomach acid. You can do it with ingredients in your pantry. Like do it tomorrow morning because it's something you do first thing in the morning. And you do it with baking soda. So go to betterbellytherapies.com/constipation. But you can also hear me talk a lot more about low stomach acid on my podcast episode on low stomach acid. And actually, let me just make sure for anybody listening, it's episode 298. If you're going to go look up the numbers that way. Otherwise, just look in the show notes for the low stomach acid episode. But low stomach acid, huge cause. When someone's like, I don't feel good on meat, I'm like, I'm immediately like, let's do a baking soda test. I bet you have low stomach acid. Low bile production can also be an issue because fat and protein require stomach acid, bile, and pancreatic enzymes to break down. So if you are low in 1, 2, or all 3 of those, guess what you're not going to feel good eating? Fat and meat. Even if it's a low fat meat, like a lean meat, you're not going to feel good because you can't break it down. If you have slow gut motility, which again, slow gut motility is not a life sentence. You can reverse it. And I talk about that in a podcast episode, Slow Motility Isn't a Root Cause, episode 299, right after the episode on low stomach acid. Technically, just in the order of all the podcast episodes, that can be a big issue is slow gut motility. So go and reverse that. You can learn how to do that in that podcast episode. If you have parasites or hidden infections like H. pylori, C. diff, that can make you just not feel good on anything, let alone meat. If you have environmental triggers or environmental toxicity you're dealing with, you're not going to feel good on either potentially any food or meat. You're not going to like notice feeling better because you have other toxins still entering your body unrelated to food. And honestly, I think at a certain point, I get some clients who just don't feel good on anything. But usually if you're one of those clients, the best you feel is on meat, and like an only meat diet. And so that's why I think meat is like superfood, key to unlock amazingness. If you're just really struggling, you don't know what to eat, you feel like you can't eat a lot, try just ruminant meat, hooved meat. Just try it. That's the worst thing that can happen. I would recommend following Michaela Fuller's instructions on how to follow the diet, because she talks about a lot of like how to slowly introduce it to your body. And it can be common that you might get issues like diarrhea or passing a lot of gas and bloating, and it'll go into that. A big reason for that is histamine, and she gives some recommendations on how to manage or mitigate it. But just really amazing work that they're doing over there. So for the average person who's not going to do a lion diet, including myself, like unless I have some major mold exposure or health issues, I'll probably never need the lion diet personally. And maybe you won't either. But I do think a really good conclusion is meat's a great thing to add into every meal. Eggs at breakfast time, sausages that are, I try to get well-sourced sausages that are clean. They don't have a lot of filler ingredients, that are grass-fed, or especially if you're going to do any type of meat that is high in fat, a high fatty meat, try to get grass-fed as much as possible, because fat stores a lot of the toxins that the animal's exposed to. So grass-fed, like if you're going to do bacon, go do bacon. Just get it grass-fed is like kind of ideal. Or get locally sourced meat, like buy a whole cow. Our family's yet to do that, but I think it's awesome that people who have switched over to that it's a really much more cost effective, gives you a lot of variety of meat to do. Like if you're going to try and do that really healthy, wholesome meat, you just put it in your own little freezer. But yeah, have meat at every meal. If you're an adult, be aiming to get it between, I'd say generally 80 to 100 grams of protein, but just see where you're at. Like literally go and say how much. I usually eat 2 eggs at breakfast and 2 pieces of deli meat at lunch, and a piece of chicken or steak or pulled pork or whatever you eat at dinner, like about this much, or maybe it's not, maybe only eat meat at 2 meals. Just do whatever you do. Evaluate the plant protein sources, the meat protein sources, see how much protein you currently take. And I usually recommend to clients to try to double it or increase it by 50%. So if you're at, and a lot of times our clients are between 20 grams and 40 grams. So try to get from like 40 to 60, from 20 to 40. And just see if you feel better, if your energy lasts longer, if you sleep deeper, if you build muscle faster, if your children are less grumpy. I love buying meat sticks from, that's what we call them. I guess it's beef jerky. I don't know. They're in the stick form, opposed to beef jerky's like irregularly cut. It's like slices of meat. I love getting those from Costco in large quantities. And I just hand my children meat sticks. That's what we call them. Here's your meat stick. I keep them in the diaper bag because it gives them great energy. Does she love it and get excited when I give her a piece of fruit instead or something sweet? Sure. But it's also great to rotate around with your meat snack as well. So that is it on meat. Highly recommend meat. I think it's going to be life-changing. And if you can't digest meat, then work on the root causes of that. And we actually help our clients figure out all those root causes inside of the Better Belly Blueprint. And of course, these root causes are what's driving all the other symptoms, the bloating, the headaches, the gas, the acid reflux, whatever you're dealing with. It's, if you can't eat meat on top of it, the same things that is disabling you from eating meat is driving all these other issues. And we help reverse all that and help you find your root causes and then know what order to address all of them in inside the Better Belly Blueprint. Go to betterbellytherapies.com/blueprint and you can see what's inside and join today. There's no wait list. Join today, start getting life change and feeling good in your body, get glowing skin, not really have to identify anymore with maybe words like bloating or IBS or constipation or diarrhea. Really just address all those things, balance your hormones, have energy, and know what to feed your kids. So I hope that helps. I'll see you guys for next week's episode. Bye.
Hey friend, I hope you loved this episode. If you've been a fan for a while or newly loving this podcast, can you do me a favor? Drop into Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. When you leave a review, you do so much. You help me know you're listening. You can tell me what you're loving so I know what to make more of. And you help others by boosting this podcast so other people like you can find the podcast too. I mean, it's a win-win-win, right? So if you want a way to pay it forward, just go to Apple Podcasts or click the link in my show notes and leave a rating and review. And if you want some more free stuff, just head over to my free Facebook group, betterbellytherapies.com/Facebook, and you can get access to all of my free support for you, including some Facebook group exclusive stuff like my podcast episode vault, where you can search the Better Belly podcast by topic and find exactly what you need to expedite your healing. I cannot wait to see you in there. Catch you guys next week.